G'day everybody. I want to talk about the structure of the competition, the AFL competition, especially with Tasmania entering the competition in a couple of years' time. It's going to be a 19-team competition.
Well, this should be very interesting.
There was a lot of talk about the AFL introducing the wildcard system, which was essentially a final 10.
That's a stupid idea.
What the wildcard system essentially is the final 8, and then 7th play 10th, 8th play 9th in 2 elimination finals to essentially see who finishes 7th and 8th. That essentially is a 11 match 5-week final 10 system. Now I actually think the AFL should introduce a final 10, but not that final 10. I think it should be a different system, which I'm going to get into in this video. I think it's a much better system than the one I'm going to propose, a much more efficient system and a much more acceptable system for the 19-team competition, which it will be in a couple of years' time. Now, there is a bit of a precedent for introducing, an increase in the amount of teams in the finals in preparation for another team coming into the competition. In 1994, it was a 15-team competition, 15 teams, and a final 8 was introduced in preparation for Fremantle's entry into the competition the following season. So 8 teams made it, 7 missed out in 1994. But really, it was to get everybody used to the system for when Fremantle came into the competition the following year, and we had 8 teams making it, 8 teams missing out, and we basically had that same Final 8 system for 30 years. However, we've increased the amount of teams by 2 since then, and soon to be 3. And we haven't had any increase in the amount of finalists yet. Now, I'm pretty certain that when we go to 19 teams, the AFL are not going to want 8 teams making it and 11 teams missing out. They're just not going to want that. The reality is the AFL is not just a sporting competition, it's also an entertainment product. That's just the reality, that's what it is.
He has a point.
And minimising some dead rubbers towards the end of the year, I think, is important into the entertainment aspect of the competition. And they're not going to want 8 teams making it, 11 miss out. They're going to want essentially half the teams making it, like it was when it was a 16-team competition and 8 teams made it and 8 teams missed out. Now, when it's a 19-team competition, you can't have half. So you either have 9 or 10. So obviously you go to 10.
Almost half.
So basically, how would the system work? Well, like I said, the system that we have at the moment is essentially a 9-match 4-week final system. It's extended to 5 weeks because they have the pre-finals bye where no one plays for a week. I think it should stay at a 9-match 4-week final system, but I think it should be pure knockout. I've never liked double chances in finals. I think they're beyond requirements. I don't think they're needed. We've had a situation over the last 30 years where the team on top of the ladder has been able to be eliminated after 1 loss in the preliminary final without getting a second chance, and of course in the grand final, which begs the question why we have double chances at all when you can give a reward for a suitable reward by having a week off to replace the double chance, so to speak. So the way the proposed final 10 system would work is in the first week you would have 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. The top 6 get a week off. Then in the second week of the finals, you would have 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, second versus the highest placed winner of the matches between 7, 8, 9 and 10, for example 7th, and first versus the lowest placed winner out of the matches between 7, 8, 9 and 10, for example 8th, or it could be as low as 10th for that team. Then in the third week you've got the preliminary finals, so the highest versus the lowest. So if the top 4 teams all progressed, you would have 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. It would always be the highest team, highest remaining team versus the lowest remaining team, which I might add, you can't have under the current Final 8. The current Final 8 you can have 1 versus 3 and 2 versus 4 in the preliminary finals. They've even had some years 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4, which is just unacceptable. So you'll do that. Then I would have a week off, a bye, so a fortnight's break between the preliminary finals and the grand final. That's in case a player has to enter concussion protocols, because you wouldn't need the pre-finals bye like they do now. And then you would have the grand final. So it's essentially a 4-week final system extended to 5 weeks with the pre-finals bye moved from the first week of the finals, like it is now under the Final 8, to the week before the grand final. Now, interestingly, compare the path to the premiership under the current Final 8 for the top team, or the top teams, so the top 4 under the current Final 8. Under the current Final 8, with the pre-finals bye, the path to the premiership for the top teams is bye, win, bye, win, win. So essentially they have 2 byes in 3 weeks, which means they've only played 1 match in 21 days entering the preliminary final. Now compare that to the proposed knockout final 10 I'm using here. The path to the premiership for the top teams is bye, win, win, bye, win. They bye in the first week because 7th play 10, 8th play 9, and top 6 have a week off. Then they have to win 2 consecutive games. Then there's a bye that everyone that is a week off because it's a fortnight off between the preliminary finals and the grand final, and then the grand final. So that's a far, far better path to the premiership. You don't have this 2 byes in 3 weeks situation that we have now, where teams have played 1 match in 21 days. The team on top of the ladder would have to do bye, win, win, bye, win. It allows a fortnight off between the preliminary final and the grand final in case a player has to enter concussion protocols, and that will happen one day. It's just inevitable. It will happen. You can't avoid it. It's going to happen. And I just think it's a much fairer path to the premiership. It gets rid of double chances totally, as it should. We've had a knockout. I mean, look, Geelong and Sydney last year, after winning their qualifying finals, both faced elimination in the preliminary finals, as they should. That's what finals are about. I've always maintained that finals are about performing on the day. They are not about getting second chances for losing. Look at the NFL, how their playoff system works. They have a Super Bowl, the equivalent of our grand final. They have 2 championship games that precede the Super Bowl. That's the equivalent of our preliminary finals. The week before that, they also have knockout games, just like in the AFL. The week before that, we have knockout games. The difference is our first week of the finals, we have these double chances. I'm not a fan of it. I've never been a fan of it. I've been on about this for years. I hate double chances. I hate what they stand for. Finals are always about performing on the day. They're not about getting second chances for losing. So I think this is a much better final system. It's much better than this wildcard system that they're proposing, which has 10 teams, but extends the finals essentially to 5 weeks and have 11 matches. I'm essentially saying it'll be a 4-week final system for 9 matches, same as it is now, but extended to 5 because you're moving, you're putting a bye between the preliminary final and the grand final. I think it's a ripper system. I think the AFL are going to move to a 10-team final system. It's certain that they're going to move to a 10-team final system in a couple of years' time when Tasmania come into the competition in 2028. And I think this should be the system. This wildcard thing, it's too convoluted. There's too many finals. There's something to be said for less is more, right? You can have too many finals. I mean, having a wildcard system essentially means that 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th would need to win 5 consecutive knockout finals. Now, I know you don't deserve any favours when you finish 7th, 8th, 9th or 10th, but asking your team, it's hard enough to win 4 finals. Asking your team to win 5 consecutive knockout finals is just silly. It's too much. 4 should be the limit, and the knockout final 10 does that. The best thing about it as well, another good thing about it as well, is that even though there are no second chances, the earliest exit point for the top teams remains week 2. If you look at the current final system, if the top teams go out in straight sets, they go out in week 2. In this system, they can't go out in week 1 because they've got to bye, but they can go out from week 2 onwards. So the earliest exit point remains the same. The difference is really the bye acts as, in the first week for the top 6 teams anyway, acts as essentially a double chance. Right? It's as if they've already played a match and lost it. It's not really like that, but it's sort of like that. They're not playing, and then in the second week, from the second week onwards, they can be eliminated. So the earliest exit point doesn't change for the top teams. They can't be eliminated in week 1, but they can be eliminated in week 2 onwards. Just like under the current Final 8, you can't be eliminated in week 1, but they can be eliminated from week 2 onwards. That's the top teams. So really, the bye essentially acts as a mathematical replacement for the double chance. And you could say, well, we have a bye under the current Final 8. Yes, but you have to win to get a bye. It's different. You have to actually win a match to get a bye. It's not just given to you. Under the knockout final 10, the bye is just given to you. So it's effectively a replacement for the double chance, a direct replacement. So you can be eliminated from week 2 onwards, but you can't be eliminated in week 1. The path to the premiership is bye, win, win, bye, win, which is much better. There's none of this 2 byes in 3 weeks stuff like they have under the current system. And I just think it's what I think it's the best system to use, and it's what the AFL should use going forward. I think they're asking for trouble with this wildcard thing. It's too many matches, it's too many finals. It's asking to win 5 finals, which is too much. So I think it's time for a knockout final system. I think it's overdue. Ever since we've had 2 knockout preliminary finals, which has been the case since 1994, we've had a situation where the top team on the ladder can be eliminated after 1 loss before the grand final, and obviously in the grand final itself. So really, ever since 1994, we haven't needed second chances, right? Ever since the knockout preliminary finals have come into play, double chances are just not necessary. The NFL proves that you don't need second chances in essentially a weekly football competition that concludes with knockout games, concludes with a knockout grand final. You don't need second chances. So I think that's the way the system should be. What do you guys think? I think that's what the AFL will do when they move to a 19-team competition. They're definitely going to be moving to 10 teams. I think that's going to be for certain. But, I think they should do it now just to get everybody used to it. I don't think there's any point waiting.
Just do it. Do it now.
If you're going to introduce a final 10 in a 19-team competition, which seems inevitable, you may as well do it now to get everybody used to it for a couple of years, just like they did in 1994 when they brought the final 8 in 1 year before it became a 16-team competition, just to get everybody used to it.
It all makes sense.
So what do you guys think? I think it's a really good system. I think it's the way the AFL should go. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to this channel. And as always, have a great day.